So this is a special episode of the Pocket Size PR podcast. It's the end of year review, and I'm really thrilled to be joined by our PR director at Harvey and Hugo, Ian Johnson, in the studio today. So welcome, Ian.
Hello.
So we're going to go through some of the regular questions that we ask guests today, as well as talk about some of the things that we've done at Harvey and Hugo this year. The first question, as you know, Ian, that we ask is, how do you define PR?
Yeah, I knew you'd ask us this. So I've had a little think about it, and I don't like to use a lot of words in anything I do, but I think storytelling that shapes reputation and opinion, I'd say is how I would define it. There's not much more to it than that. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. But I think it's stories. It's just good old-fashioned storytelling, and that's what makes a difference in PR.
Yeah.
I would go as far as that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fundamental, and totally it's perceptions, relationships. I've kind of thought about how I define it as well as part of this. And for me, it's all about building perceptions or change perceptions sometimes, and building the relationships. And the fundamental of relationships for me is communication.
Yeah.
And then I love alliteration. So I've developed I always bang on about I always say the C words. It sounds so bad. Not that C word.
I always thought it was because of Charlotte. I thought it was some kind of branding exercise.
Maybe, it's inbuilt in me. But yeah, concise, consistent, creative and compassionate communications. I think that's it. You have to have a clear message. It can't be complicated. It has to be consistent. Too much activity, particularly in communications, it's inconsistent and it does not help. Creative, you have to stand out in all the noise that's out there at the minute. And it has to have emotion. It has to have feeling to, again, make people take action. So
yeah, it's really true. I think there's so much PR you see that's done that's just a little bit joyless and just doesn't have that human touch. I think increasingly we need to have that human message in everything we do.
Yeah.
I don't have 5 C's, but I agree with you completely on that.
Amazing, thank you. So, Ian, what were your most memorable episodes this year?
Yeah, well, there's one that hasn't come out yet, which I think is probably due in the next couple of weeks, was Chris Carroll, who we've worked a lot with this year. And Chris comes on and just talks wonderfully about the impact PR has had. And I think there's a big problem people have with PR, that they just don't think it's going to work. And Chris is just like a walking embodiment of how it does work. He started a business last year and he came to us, and the impact has been phenomenal, in terms of just getting that messaging, that key messaging that he wanted to get across out there to the public. He talks a lot about how he had probably had a few little doubts at the beginning. He wasn't really sure how much PR would work, but I think anyone who's got any concerns about using PR should watch Chris's episode.
Absolutely.
I think it really, really is just a ringing endorsement for what we do. And Jim Entwistle's as well. I used to be a journalist, so I knew of Jim and worked with Jim a little bit. And I think hearing his take in from the other side as well, I found really, really interesting. There's some really good little nuggets in there. And I think anyone who wants a sort of insight into how that mindset in journalism and how it works, I think it's a must-watch episode, yeah.
Yeah, they're both really memorable for me as well. And just so the listeners know, Chris Carroll's episode will be the first one out after Christmas, right, I believe. Okay, I think episode 26. But what's also interesting about Chris's episode, and I don't know if we talk about it in there, is I think it took all in all about 10 years for me to convince Chris to do PR. So it takes time, it takes years. I'm just so glad he's doing it now. But actually we do talk about it, and he said if he'd done it back 10 years ago, he wouldn't have had the budget to have done it properly, and then he wouldn't have recognised all the benefits. So he does kind of conclude that it is worth waiting until you have the time, the right team set up and the right budget to do it properly. So that's interesting. But yeah, for me, so many memorable ones. Episode 21 with Jenny, I loved how she was saying that AI is actually helping her in terms of encouraging people offline into more real life networking. Kim in episode 18, influencing the influencer. I think that's so important. I love that take. I loved Carol Feely's episode about natural stupidity.
Yes, very
brilliant.
Good.
That's
very
genius. Almost playing to our strengths as human beings. It's always nice to persuade an FD that PR is actually a really valuable tool. So episode 17 with Richard was great as well. Which episode surprised you most, Ian?
Most surprising episode? I think Jim's stood out a little bit. There was a line in there that really sort of like took us away. Jim, for background, does a lot of training. He works for the university, and he's effectively training the next generation of media professionals, so journalism, PR. There was a line in there which really took us aback, where he said that there's almost a round of applause now when people go make a phone call. As someone who had to really cut his nose in journalism in like a really hard old school newsroom, that was really quite eye-opening. We've got we work with some really amazing younger people in the company, and I couldn't imagine any of them having that, but that really, really took us off guard. I think Richard Bradley's was a little bit surprising. I think when he talks, you hinted on it before, around like the sort of that top level boss who just doesn't have any interest in PR, doesn't see how it's going to work. I think when he was so honest about that and said that, I just never thought this was going to really have any benefit, and then clearly he's tasted PR when it's done well, and that sort of that surprise by how effective it can be was great. In terms of anything else, Richard Bradley, that was quite a surprising episode, and just I think how many people come on here as well and just talk up PR. I think there's this idea that a lot of people aren't necessarily interested in PR or want to go for PR, but every guest on here will come and just testify how much impact it's had for them, for their business, how effective it can be. And I think it's surprising to me just how many people see the upside in it. In a pleasant way.
Definitely, from a lot of different industries as well. And obviously the guest list is curated. But different industries where you think, actually PR won't be of any benefit to that industry, like the car industry, for example. But actually, yes, it's critical in so many. And also the breadth of kind of PR channels that there are. And yes, obviously there's crossover between, is it marketing, is it PR? Yeah. But for me, as you'll have heard me bang on about in this podcast, PR is everything. It has an element to play across the full all the channels, multimedia channels. For me, I agree. Jim Entwistle's episode 12, for anyone who wants to find it. Yeah, the young people. It's just surprising how communications are changing as the years go on. And how people are so afraid of sometimes verbal conversations. When, like you say, when we were training, the phone was a critical part, everyday usage. The emails were there too, but you had to be picking up the phone all the time.
Just conversations. I remember when I first started, like having to go out every single day when I worked in Scarborough with a pen and a paper and a camera, and having to find 4 people in 10 minutes, persuading them to be in a newspaper, for like a vox pop, and like that sort of like human interaction was just, I don't know, it was just accepted that would be part of the job. But it has changed a lot. You can go, there'll be professionals now I speak to regularly, but like, don't really ring them. There's a different form of communication, and it is important to acknowledge that communication doesn't just change, it evolves. And once upon a time we didn't have the luxury of emails. Oh God, I sound so old. Like just round the clock emails on your phone, but like you sort of take it for granted now. But it's changed immeasurably since that time, but it was still very surprising. But maybe just because I've become very old overnight. I don't know.
But old school methods, I think they stand out today. And you wrote an excellent piece about it, where it even quoted Bob Hoskins, from the BT adverts, It's Good to Talk. It helps you kind of develop the story a lot more, find out more opportunities.
And I think networking's dried up a little bit. I think it's something that really shouldn't. I think just that human interaction you have with someone is worth 1 million emails easily.
Totally.
Just find out what's happening in people's lives as well. Like you don't have that with an email.
You don't.
You can't. It looks strange if you ask on an email, maybe a little bit, especially if you've never met them or you don't have that level of interaction with them. But it's something I think we need to bring back a little bit.
Yeah, more networking. I was at an event this morning, and I could have easily emailed the people I knew in the room, asked them how things were going, but it's so much better seeing them face to face, and you do feel uplifted afterwards. Something about human engagement.
You get a real sense of energy from doing it. It is good.
Yeah, and I was mildly surprised and enjoyed Emma Thwaites from episode 13, her bluntness about the use of AI in creating beige slop that seems to be being churned out by the machines. I love that expression, beige slop. So true.
Yeah,
and we're on a campaign to help our clients cut through that beige slop.
There's too much beige slop.
Lovely term.
It's wonderful. I can never get sick of saying it.
No. So what would you say to someone who says that PR is just all about spin and fluff?
Yeah, it's something you encounter quite a lot in PR. It It isn't, is what I would say in a nutshell.
I'm glad.
I think if I'd said otherwise, I think we've got a real problem on our hands here.
Absolutely. We'd have to go outside for a talk.
I think there's this idea, and I think it probably comes from like the 90s and noughties around PR, that it's all this exercise and spin doctors, and you're there to take something that isn't maybe newsworthy and turn it into something that is. I mean, correct us if I'm wrong, I don't think for any of our clients we've ever really spun anything. I think what we do is, I think we're storytellers, and I think that's what PR is. I think everyone's got a story, and I think everyone has something they can talk about. But I think what a lot of people aren't necessarily brilliant at is telling that story. Not everyone is a natural storyteller. And I think PR is extracting what is and is not interesting to the wider public and making it in a way that's engaging and relatable. I think that's what we do very well, and I think that's what PR is. It isn't about adding elements that aren't true. And I think in this day and age, I think the more you do that, the more you're at risk for your PR. And in terms of fluff, you know, watch that Chris Carroll episode. That is just the epitome of why PR isn't fluff. You know, we'll deal with sort of MDs and CEOs all the time who go, I want to say, what's your ROI on this? How's it going to work? But the reality is, like, look at Chris. Like, the tangibles are there, can make a big difference, PR, to your bottom line, and it can actually give enormous credibility to your brand. You know, we've won, there's awards, there's coverage coming out every year with that, and that just isn't just a little bit of like nice stuff at the bottom of a newsletter. That's taking his business to another level, and that can be done everywhere. So no, I would say no, that's not true. PR is not fluff, and it is not spin.
Excellent answer. And we were almost like detectives initially, aren't we, to find that good story, really digging in, because people don't realise, like you say, they might just say, oh, I haven't got anything going on, but, you know, this just happened. You're like, that's gold. That's amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of the time as well, it isn't the stuff that they always come with. Like they might think they've got this really interesting element, because a lot of businesses and a lot of people just live in little bubbles, and I think what's interesting to their sort of internal audience is going to have this like big appeal. And I think what good PR workers do is we can extract that, the stories that they maybe don't see there, and we can turn them into something that is. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And so in 2026, why should a business invest in PR?
It's a good question. AI is the obvious one. I think there's probably a little bit of a nervous point a year or two ago, I think, with anyone who worked in a creative industry around AI and thinking, how's it going to impact you? And, you know, anyone could put something at the ChatGPT and make some beige slop. But, like, AI is actually, in terms of PR, I think we've both seen that AI is going to be, you know, PR is going to be massive for AI. It is going to be revolutionary in terms of what AI is looking for now isn't just a string of sort of cheap backlinks here and that and there. It's wanting top quality, like top tier placements. It's wanting to look at, you know, where have you been? What are the sort of top industry titles you've been in? What are the top sort of news titles you've been in? That's where it's wanting to get its information from. So in terms of future proofing, massive. But also, you know, something we've campaigned a lot this year as well is I think PR is going to have to become like a reputational fire guard. You know, we live in a world that is increasingly sort of grey, blurred lines everywhere. You've got massive risks. You've got AI, you've got fake news, you've got just stuff that 15 years ago would have seemed completely bonkers that you're having to deal with. And you've got to be on your guard 24/7. And I think having a capable agency in your pocket when that goes wrong is massive. And I also think as well, just in terms of building your growth, I think Richard talks about it in his episode, but PR isn't just always about how we looked at like externally. It's also about internal. And it can be a great magnet for your business. You know, you might not be on the front page of the Times, but if you've got the right placement and the right title, especially a trade title, and you can talk about how great a business is and the culture that's there, that is as good as a job advert for anything else. And I think if you're looking to grow your business and grow your team and have that sort of internal buzz as well, I think PR is fantastic.
Absolutely. It has so many more benefits than people just give it credit for, or like just building a brand, you know, so much more, and so many opportunities it can lead to once your profile is more visible. But yeah, definitely think that we will be taking on that role of brand custodian for so many more businesses, monitoring, protecting. Yeah, and that's been a key theme for us this year. All about credibility and trust as well for the LLMs, which brings me on to the PR trends in 2026. So obviously we've got the the LLMs or AI, building credibility and trust. We've got the protection, being brand custodians, crisis comms, protecting yourself in the first place. What else do you think is going to be a trend?
I think there's a term in our industry called like sort of spray and pray. And I think this idea that you just, I've always liked it as well, that you will just take a bit of, content or whatever and you'll just put it everywhere and hope it lands.
Yeah.
I think that's dying off. I think, especially with the rise of AI, I think what people are wanting to see is themselves in the best, highest quality coverage they can get. Yeah. And you can't do that with spray and pray. And I think you've got to have that like sort of top tier titles. I also think from a language point of view, I think there's just enormous shifts going on. I think once upon a time there was this great polish associated with PR that you would take your brand and just, you would give it to an agency and they would just make you look great. I think the language and the stories coming out of businesses are all going to change. I think you can even see it now. We live in a really, really hard world at the minute. And I think people don't want to see this halo on your business. I think people want to see the reality. And I think that connects far more from a human level than just saying everything's wonderful.
I agree.
We've got a little restaurant next to where we live in North Shields, and they put something on their socials the other day about how they basically just can't get costs covered for the day.
Yeah.
And that absolutely took off. And they didn't put on saying, aren't we all wonderful? Look how great our team was. They told a human story. And that really, really, really connected. And I think in PR, that is what the stories that people are going to hear in the next few years that are only going to get harder. And that's what can grow your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I said the same this morning about, promoting a region. You have to be honest. It has to be real. You have to believe in it yourself as well. If you're just glossing over things, you're not really going to believe that story.
It doesn't connect as well. And that's the crucial thing with PR. PR has got to connect with the other side, be it the reader, be it the stakeholder, whoever you're trying to appeal to. And just having this over-polished version. And even the language people are using, you look at like what Donald Trump's done with language, like he's just ripped up the rule book and how you communicate with people. But that's how people want to be talked to now. They don't want sort of jargon. They don't want like to be talked down to almost. They want to hear a human voice at the other end.
Yeah.
And that's going to change as well.
And some vulnerability sometimes as well, because we warm to that. But I've definitely noted down being more human.
Yeah.
And also, as you alluded to, being more micro and niche as well.
Yes.
Again, with the LLMs, they're going to be so specific. So it's really kind of honing in on what's your brand message. We've been using this word boutique for a little while. Almost that small quality that we really care for our clients, and people search that and they find us on those terms through the AI compared to Google, which I think is fascinating. And then we tend to have a stronger relationship if they're right from the start for us. Obviously multimedia storytelling is nothing new, but I could see that continuing to grow, and definitely being more creative constantly. It's needed. You can't, and to stop just using AI for creativity, like what Carol said, our natural stupidity guides us quite a lot on creativity.
Laziness as well.
Yes.
And it's an easy option. It's quick, but like creativity isn't a quick process. There's like a lot of years built into a creative person. You can't just turn creativity on and off as well. And I think that's something I'm gonna have to look at.
Yeah, and we sit there in our creative meetings, and sometimes they're painful. When we give the brief, and you can just hear almost the cogs whirring, and nothing's coming out. And it's easy to just stop and give up, or say, "Oh, let's just search an AI." But it's so satisfying when you come up with new ideas, and generally one idea springs another idea from someone. So we really need to kind of work on that. Otherwise, we'll lose that ability in our minds.
Oh, 100%. Like I think you've talked about before with this idea that we're gonna have to start going to gyms for our brain.
Yeah.
Because we don't use our brains anymore. And it's really, really worrying. But again, it's that thing as well of having a team where we've got a lot of people we can work with and talk with and bounce ideas off. And I think, be it the rise of home working or people just by themselves, they don't have that environment. But I know we meet really often and we can go in and we can just bounce ideas off each other. And probably some of the best ideas we've had as a team this year have just come in them little hour meetings where we're just chucking stuff at the wall and just building them up, and it's great.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just having that, I don't know, is the word emotional safety or something like that, where you can say anything you want and you're not going to be judged for it, because that's important to stimulate creativity. So what's been your favourite campaign you've worked on this year?
From our side, I've really enjoyed the stuff with Chris. I think it's been great. I think taking a brand, we did it with Michael the year before, where we get a relatively new brand and you've got this blank canvas to work with. And when you've got someone who can come back to you with ideas as well, much like Chris, much like Michael, who want to work with you, they're your ideal PR clients. I think there's always this concern when you get a client who just doesn't come back, and you need, it really is a two-way street. But being able to just take a good business and just tell that story and get it out there and win awards and see the joy in the face when they get the coverage that they really want, it's a lovely thing. It really is. It's a lovely job. I've also enjoyed, from a personal point of view, our condoms.
You might need to add some context to that.
Yeah, it's a fair point, actually, Sean. Just was part of our 16th birthday, and we thought, super sweet 16 condoms. So yeah, we put some, we give away a condom as our sort of promotional prize this year, and built our sort of brand protection around there as well. It all ties in very nicely, and it got a lot of raised eyebrows, and it's a little bit controversial, which the best PR campaigns are. You look at the stuff about Ricky Gervais and the vodka at the minute. It connects with people because it's eye grabbing. You can't just tap someone anymore. You've really got to hit them. It's such a crowded world.
Yeah.
And you can give someone a business card or a pen at a convention and have a nice handshake, or you can give someone a condom. Great conversation starter.
Oh, absolutely.
And a marriage killer, I would imagine, as well, for a few people.
Do you know one person who had to justify it?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We've had some good stories back. Probably not repeatable on the podcast, but
yeah, definitely.
People finding them in.
Oh yes, under the son's bed. Yeah, and she actually thanked me because it essentially is protecting him.
Yeah, he went away on like a weekend with the lads, so she was like very grateful. Yeah.
Excellent. It sounds like there's a couple of stories, and also that tied in really nicely with the trend that we've talked about of brand protection. It is going to be so important. And just to, again, add some context, Chris Carroll is from Resolve Group.
Yes.
They create digital solutions for people. Well, they don't create them, actually. They fix them, which is the unique selling point, and which is often, like, people forget you need something quite exciting and new and different and be bold to make a story stronger.
Yeah, you do. And, like, you've got to have a niche in this world. And I think Chris has got a niche, but the struggle a lot of businesses haven't even have got a niche is just projecting why that matters to the public. And I think that's where we can come in really well. We can say how this matters. We can talk in simple terms and easily communicatable ways how that makes a difference. But yeah, you've got to do something completely different.
Yeah, and why it matters, and then case studies backing it up and telling that, again, in a human way, the story of how the difference it's made. Because when your technology isn't working properly and you've invested hundreds, if not thousands of pounds in it, and blood, sweat, tears, that affects your personal life as well. So we translate that human story
massively, yeah, and it's something we do for a lot of clients. I think a lot of agencies might sort of stray away from touching on that human element as much, and I don't know why. I think that the stories that really connect. I know Chris basically won he's won business off the back of it because someone went, that can relate to what I do. Like, I can see that. I can see myself in this person's shoe in the case study and go, I've been through that. Like, I need this bloke in my life. It's all very well having that, my business is great, please use my business. It's kind of press release or a story, but like when you've got a face behind it and you've got a human struggle, that's what connects with people. And that's increasingly what we're going to have to do more and more to get that messaging across. Yeah. But it works.
No, I agree. So what PR related topics, or even who would you like on the podcast in 2026?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of them this year. I think we've really we've talked a lot of different sectors. I think from my background, I'm a journalist by trade, and I'm always interested to see how regional media can make a difference. I would love to get a working or active journalist on the podcast and talking about that side and seeing how PR can help them, how that's helped them, from their industry and the relationships they have. Because that is a big part of what we do at the end of the day. We talk a lot about, the businesses who are there, but I would like to get someone from a working journalist on here and get that talking about. And just champion about how impactful like sort of regional coverage can be, how they've helped grow businesses and brands through their jobs. But there's always this idea that you aspire to be in all these big sort of national titles, or you want to be on, the TV. But actually, in terms of the regional press, like the impact it can have, and trade press as well, is enormous. Like, I think it's completely undervalued. I think there's regional titles like the MEN that completely outstrip most of the nationals in terms of like monthly page visits and stuff. And like getting something in the title like that can have far more impact to you and cut through than just getting the ideal coverage that you would want. And yeah, it would be good to get someone from a journalist background on. I know I had Jim, but somebody else.
Someone who's active, as you say. Let's do it. And also, it's important for people to realise as well that AI might be able to create some content, even if it's less beige and sloppy, but can it build those journalist relationships?
No, and that's a big part of what we're doing. It's sort of, you don't see it. You know, you think you're paying for this idea of the work, but the work isn't just the words.
Yeah.
Or it isn't just the social media posts, it's the connections and the human relationships that, you know, we all build up with the sort of key people in the industry to get that coverage and to get that. AI might be able to do it one day, who knows, but I don't really see it on the horizon. Let's hope it doesn't anyway.
I know. Yeah, we're hoping it's on our side, and it's going to spin to PR's side in terms of strengths of the trust, building the trust and credibility with it. It'd also be interesting to ask them how they're using AI. You talked about AI reporters that they have. Yeah,
a lot of titles now have them. It seems a little bit scary to me because when I left journalism, AI wasn't even a thing. But I think more and more, I think it's being asked to churn stuff out, and then, you know, maybe there's an input in there, and then maybe they sort of top and tail it, and they'll check it for legal reasons, but I don't know, it seems very scary to me. And it's just indicative of like an industry that's been ripped apart by job cuts and all this stuff that they're having to turn to that. But, you know, humans are the inquisitive ones. Humans are the ones who are the good storytellers and always will be. And, you know, we shouldn't be handing everything over to it just yet.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So, Ian, let's wrap things up. What are your top PR tips?
Yeah, I usually have a big laundry list of them that when we get a new client on, about good pictures are massive. I know I nag you all the time about it, and everyone, but stories are not just words.
Yeah,
images are so vital. Increasingly, you know, you need a good quality image, and just having a sort of old passport picture that you throw in and go, that's a picture of me, it doesn't matter. And it's the projection. It's the first thing people see when they see a story. You know, before they even read any of the content, they're looking at that image before they click through it on the website or they see it. It's what draws people in. I do feel like images are really, really undervalued. I know it's been talked about. It's, you know, the power of photography.
Yeah.
We've had this mentioned on the podcast this year, and I couldn't agree more. I think data. I think I like to see when clients have got data. If they've got a point, can you back it up? If you're talking about financials, you know, where's your company's house? Let's look at the numbers. Let's make sure it's all standing up before we're taking the press. But it was Tim Johnson, I think, who said it. I really liked it. It was like, just be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I think authenticity is more crucial than it has ever been and ever will be. But I'd say on top of that as well, as be human and be relatable as well. Because I think if your content, whatever it is, be it press releases, be it long reads, be it social media posts, be it whatever, if that doesn't connect with a human, it's never going to have any good through. And, you know, a big part of what we do is about being heard. And if you're not human, you won't be heard. So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and I love that connection word. And it was Hannah Duggleby in episode 4 that really mentioned the power of data. They used a lot of that. Their own data that they generated off the back of their, I think, e-commerce system. But obviously you can get data from so many sources. Yeah. You do a lot of freedom of information requests.
Yeah. It's something that I like to think sets us apart a little bit, is we will do the digging on the data.
Mm-hmm.
And with pleasure as well, but we are a bit nerdy when it comes to data. But like, you know, it's that industry experience as well of knowing that's what a journalist wants at the end of the day. And like, if you're bringing something that isn't just effectively a glossy op-ed about how great your business is, if you can back that up with hard stats and giving them something new and juicy to work with, your coverage will go through the roof. And it's something that I really, really like to drive home. But yeah.
So powerful. And mine would be, I mean, I bang on about saying PR, your PR, you know, it's not enough to just get one piece, maximize it, share it across all the channels, do a podcast about your story, or even a little video, share it on socials, create a picture that tells the story. You can't just rely on one piece hoping that everyone sees it. Share it across all the networks. Consistency is one thing I bang on about all the time. You have to be consistent to stand out. It has that compounding effect over time. If you're releasing a press release or doing one form of networking or a podcast once a week, over that 52 weeks, it will have much more of an effect than kind of the first 5 weeks and say it's doing nothing, I'm going to give up. Unfortunately, it takes time.
Yeah, and we obviously have the pay-as-you-go service, which I think is a brilliant, really sort of novel approach, especially if you want to just dip your toe into the waters with PR. It's great, but it isn't something that is going to build up your brand long term. And, you know, any case study we talked about, any of the clients over the last few years who have really felt the impact of PR, it's that constant month by month approach, strategy. Like, this is what we're going to put out this month. This is what we're going to do. And eventually over time, PR does work. It isn't something that is just, you put your story in the paper once and you're away. Like, you've got to have that message, like, and you've got to underlie it every month, and you've got to keep it on top of it, and just drill it home, drill it home, drill it home.
Yeah.
But it works.
Gives you a little boost, the pay-as-you-go stuff, as you say. But
Yeah.
I liken it to going to the gym. You know, you need to keep going consistently to get the results. Your kind of fitness is the same as your brand fitness.
Yeah.
You know, keep being seen, keep being heard, keep sharing your messages in a creative way, of course.
Yeah.
And my final tip, I guess, would be to use an agency, particularly a high-quality one. Yeah, like Harvey and Hugo.
That would be the best one.
Yeah. So yeah, use Harvey and Hugo. Thanks, Ian.
No probs.
Nobody can do business with you if they don't know about your business. But nobody will do business with you if your business's brand doesn't have trust and credibility. PR is the secret sauce in the marketing mix that can help achieve this and so much more. If you're interested in how PR can help your business, contact Harvey and Hugo, harveyandhugo.com, or email info@harveyandhugo.com.